back on week 13 right now. What I'm wanting you to do is go back into week 12, make sure that you've read that hourglass form because that will be how I want you to set up the newspaper part of this written story. And then, I wanted you to read how a court case is structured. Now, the McKinney versus Duplain, that one's a little bit different than the one I'm having you use this week. I just wanted you to get two different looks at court cases. But both of these court cases pertain to events that occurred at Ball State. In fact, they were shootings that occurred at Ball State in the distant past. And so for this week, and in particular the story assignment, for this assignment, I'm looking for you to open up this court case, Turner versus State. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't want to give you content that is almost 20 years old, but it's a really interesting story. I think that okay, here are the facts of the case. I'll go through the parameters of the assignment in just a second, but this just gives you some backstory that actually will be pretty important for you to use in your eventual story assignment. But back in September of '94, so this is now over 20 years ago, the defendant in this court case that I'm having you read and use for this assignment, he and a group of friends drank and partied at a graveyard near campus. Um, well, one of them decided they wanted to go to Ball State and rob someone. How nice. And asked the defendant if they'd go with them. This defendant agreed to go. And then at about 2 a.m., wrong place at the wrong time. They spotted this kid. He's I don't think it says it here, but if you do some research, which I'm also asking you to do for this assignment, you'll find out that he was a sophomore, I believe, and he was walking a female friend home to the residence halls. I don't recall which one, but they did pick him up and they attempted to rob him, but he didn't have any money. But they took him out and shot him in the head, and that was about 20 years ago. So I think if my research is correct, if you went just because maybe you're curious, if you went, let's see, east from campus on Neely, past New York, past Linden, I think it's that last block right before you hit Wheeling. That was where this happened, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, the reason I want you to take a look at this is that take a look, this is the Supreme Court of Indiana. So this is a few steps above. Hopefully through that scavenger hunt I had you do a week or two ago, understanding a little bit more about court cases and how they function, you may have realized that there's different levels of litigation in the state of Indiana, but also on a federal level. For now, though, we're talking about the state. And so what happened was, after this murder occurred, they found these guys, they prosecuted them, they found them guilty. Well, then there were subsequent appeals. And so what you're looking at here is an appeal. So that's kind of important for you to pay attention to that. This is not the first prosecution of these guys that found this kid, attempted to rob him, and shot him in the head. So, pay attention to that as you read this, and that's why I'm giving you these things. And you'll notice, I think it's early on here, you've got the 3 points of appeal. Well, that's not going to work. Number one, number two, and number three. You have the 3 points of appeal that frame this particular case. So, if I go back to the assignment for a second, what I'm wanting you to do, and you're welcome to work in pairs, like I've always asked, just let me know who you're working with, and I want you to treat it as though this were June of '97, and so this court case, this was just settled, this brief came out, was available, and you're a court reporter for a local media outlet. I thought this one, courts aren't exactly that interesting, but I thought this court case might have your attention because of the gravity of the case. So that's why I've pulled this from 20 some years ago. But what I'm wanting you to do with this is to compose a story based on it. So in part one, you're going to need, of course, your headline, byline, and dateline. And again, please go back to that story example. I want to say it was in for some reason, week 5 makes me think it might be in there, but I'm not seeing. That's more the broadcast stuff. Let's see if it's week 6. The general layout for print stories. So it's in week 6. This is the general layout and format that I'm going to want you to follow, as I've always asked, for your print-based stories in this class. So headline, byline, dateline, following that established template. And it's to be written in the hourglass story form because that is conducive to this type of reporting. So you're going to have your summary or delayed identification lead, which you should know what that is. Basically, that's just the verdict of this appeal case. And then you're gonna, give us the nuts and bolts, maybe a quote or something that you'll attribute to the testimony in the court transcript. And then the hourglass allows you to go chronological after that. And so what you're gonna want to do is start back with that background information that I just told you about. There's a lot of information here with the 5Ws and 1H, and I would expect to see that in your chronological order that comprises the hourglass story form. And so, as I say, you'll want in-text attributions to at least 2 supplemental credible sources beyond the court report. So, you're going to need to, as I say up here, and it's underlined, you're going to need to do a little bit of research. So what I might recommend in order to, reintroduce you to databases, I might suggest, if you go to Bracken Library and click on databases, I might do Access World News. I think that one might be really helpful for you. So I'm just going to show you once it appears what this database looks like. Then it'll be up to you to search, and you're going to want to search locally. So, you'll need to specify, obviously, North America, the US, Indiana. But I think what you'll find, and if I do it just quickly, I won't do the actual searching for you, but I will at least show you this database as a place to start for credible local source material that you might use. For the United States, let's click on that. And let's see what they have for Indiana. Yeah, you've got Ball State Daily News in here. That could be really interesting to see what was reported once upon a time, if anything. But these are all local. These are all local newspapers, magazines, journals that you could search through the state of Indiana to find historic, credible information that would be relevant to this shooting that occurred near campus. So you're going to want to have that credible information in your story. And then, of course, proper grammar, punctuation. And I want 500 words plus or minus 5 words. So I'm giving you a word limit. And so I want the word count at the end. And then what I'm also looking for, well, when I say include hard copy, that's what I'm looking for. You could do screenshots, that's fine. That'll be fine if you want to attach those, that'll work. The second part of this, though, that also is requiring your attention is a voiceover, just a general broadcast voiceover. And I'm not looking for any sound bites because obviously you're not going to interview anybody for this event. So I will reiterate that right here now. No interview is necessary for this story. But what I am going to ask you to do, again, your voiceover should follow the examples included in Blackboard. And actually, we already saw that earlier. They're in week 5. So follow the format. And what I'm looking for, your challenge here is to come up with compelling visuals. So again, you're not actually going to go into a courtroom with a camera, but what I want you to do is to think about what could be compelling visuals because as you know, electronic devices are not allowed in Indiana courts of law. So you can't bring the camera in, presuming, this is June of '97, you're a court reporter, you're covering this case, this appeal, you can't bring your camera into the courtroom. So what do you do in order to get compelling shots on the visual side? And then, of course, you need to compose and create the audio, that is the actual voiceover. So that's the second part of this. So it's a newspaper story using hourglass form, 500 words, and then it's also a broadcast voiceover, and I'm looking for an estimated runtime of 40 seconds. So it's a lot of instruction, but and it will require a little bit of research, but I think that you can do this. I think you can do this, and I'm looking for it by this Sunday. And to be fair, you have had this for a while. So I'll be looking for it Sunday night. That's all you're doing this week. But as I tell you and warn you, you have an upcoming multimedia story assignment. And again, you've also known about this for a while. I am giving you until Monday, November 28th, but you have to remember the university will not be open Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday next week because of the holiday. So please get your plans in order so that you don't find yourself up against the wall. for this assignment that is due next week, this audio still pick slideshow with social media. This will require you to check out a camera and use it and spend some time in Adobe Premiere to edit this together. So please pace yourself. Please look ahead at the weeks to round out the semester so that you are in a position where you don't find yourself surprised and in a bad way. So all this is now available to you. I know that I have been perpetually behind on my grading, and I appreciate your patience with me to that end. I will plan to make serious inroads on that now that I've got all these weekly modules more or less set up and ready to go to close out the semester. So just as a final comment, thank you again for your patience. I appreciate that very much. And of course, if you do have questions, let me know.